agenda out to get us. I just believe that there is a real agenda out to get us. There really is, and I just.
The turn to the right was accelerating.
I vote, but
freedom of speech had become yet another quality of life crime.
And so much bigger than we are.
History was being redefined.
You're on your name and where you're from.
Anyone not in step with the will of the mayor and the real estate guys who financed his election
what I wanted to say was
are branded enemies of the state.
Black people. This is people that don't agree with the government's policies, with the city policies, with what's going on, with everything that's going on in the world. This is anybody that disagrees. I just want to get the point across that yes, there is a vendetta, particularly towards black people, and I appreciate that. And I'm so sorry. I'm a white person, and I'm.
Last week, Michael Carter was chased down and beaten and put through the system for speaking out about Tompkins Square Park.
At that last call, I had a brilliant idea that we should talk to the police, and we should say, why does it take 18 bullets?
Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression.
And then they waited
this right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information through any media, regardless of frontiers. This is from the International Declaration of Human Rights. Last week, Michael Carter was walking by this park, and he said in a loud voice, "I can remember when Tompkins Park used to be free. I can remember sitting on the benches all night long." 2 police officers followed him for 2 blocks and beat him down for saying that. Last week, a woman saw a cop hassling a homeless person here, dragging a homeless person out of the park. And they said, "Hey, stop that. Leave that lady alone." This woman was beaten up and strip searched. A friend of mine was walking by the park with a lawyer friend of his yesterday, and he said, "Hey, let me show you something." And he yells out, "I can remember when Tompkins Park used to be free." And he was suddenly surrounded by police. And if he hadn't have had a lawyer with him, he would have been arrested. And this is why we've called this Speak Out here, so that we can make it clear that we still have freedom of speech in this park, and that we still have the right to say, "I can remember when Tompkins Park used to be free." It's very interesting they would attack him for saying that. It's interesting because in saying that, Michael Carter, who is a writer and records history, was doing his job. He was recording history. He was saying that he could remember the way this park used to be. Now, it's a funny thing because you can go up to Broadway and you can pay $70 and you can see the history of this park. But you can't talk about it on this corner without a lawyer. If I did not have a lawyer here, I would not be able to speak as I am now. We have proof from 3 instances this week. So at this point, they're trying to keep us from recounting our history. They're trying to make us forget who we are. They're trying to smooth over the history of this park. They want us to forget the fact that there used to be tents in this park and that this was popular. The people of this neighborhood came out here to protect the homeless. That was not unpopular. The only people who didn't like that are living in that big building over there and that new one they're building over there. The majority of people here supported having the homeless in this park if they had no place else to go. And people put their lives on the line to protect the homeless. Okay, they don't want people to remember that. They've rewritten in the press, they've rewritten it in the books, and they don't want us to be able to talk about it anymore. So that's why we're here to talk about that, to remember our history.
They invaded. The real estate guys had made the largest contributions to the big city politicians, so in turn, the big city politicians gave them the People's Police Force to bat down the local community resistance while they moved in. The bandshell in Tompkins Square Park was a focal point for community free speech, so they closed the park and demolished it. Now the police bring in their own bandshell, and they control the sound, and they control everything. It's gone now, but people remember it for the symbol of free speech that it was.
I remember when they had the big band shell here, and all the bands would play from the neighborhood, and they'd have huge parties, and you know, then it became a place where all these homeless people were sleeping because they didn't have any place else to go.
Backroom deals, backwards. Now they were trying to rewrite history. The occupation of the neighborhood by an army of police pitted against the community that lived there. The brutality of the police was always dealt with by the bosses as a public relations problem, and not the crime it was. The drugs were sanctioned, and the buildings burned as fire departments were closed down. The brutality came whenever people tried to preserve their homes and rights. They were being pushed every day by fascist bastards, and they were paying for it. It pissed people off. But what could they do about it? They came in with guns, kicked everybody out of the park and built a high fence around it, and then occupied the neighborhood for a few years. The idea was to make it seem like an improvement, but you can't improve on Nazi Germany in 1933.
5 minutes here. Right to ask peaceful citizens to move, to stop, anything. Let's go. You're gonna have to go over here. Goodbye. This is your white side here. If you're gonna film. Yeah, goodbye. New York State law is explicit. Peacefully, citizens can witness the actions of the police when they are peaceful. There is no right of them to restrict movement in our neighborhood. We are not demonstrators. We are witnesses of an occupation of our neighborhood. That's what's going on out here. We're not unlawful demonstrators. We're not rioters. And you're just going to say anybody who is a witness of what is happening out here, there's no right for them to walk, move.
Now the bandshell was everywhere.
Also like a political flashpoint, and so they just tore the damn thing down. That's how they get rid of problems, is just to, you know, eliminate them.
So where do people speak out now?
Well, usually anywhere they can. I mean, usually over there at the southwest corner, you know?
Mm-hmm. You spoke out recently, didn't you?
Yeah.
Down at Tompkins Square Park. And our taxpayers' money's got to go to this shit? I mean, I'm gonna tell you, they're gonna start cutting welfare behind this, because these guys got to be paid. These guys didn't come down here for nothing. They're gonna get extra money in their pocket, so that means it comes out of your paycheck. And now that it comes out your paycheck, you can't feed yourself, you can't feed your kids, and you might lose your apartment. I mean, all this is uncalled for. It's just causing more problems down here, and the people in this community is about fed up. I've seen cops sitting up on buildings today, sharpshooting. How many sharpshooters they plan on shooting somebody? The thing is, they want to get all of the homeless people out of this neighborhood. They don't see it's rich people that are moving into this community. These new luxury condos have gone up, and rich folks are now moving into the territory. They don't want to see a bum cross the street in the park. Oh no, because it's disgusting. But you see, this belongs to the poor. This neighborhood is for the poor. The poor people have been here for years, and the poor people ain't going nowhere. So if that means we have to riot, if that means we have to get loud, if that means we have to fight for our territory, we're going to do it. We are really going to do it, because we're tired of these kind of assholes coming down here and doing this shit. They got helmets on right now. You can't stand on the corner. You can't stand in the street. You can't stand in front of the road.
All civilian personnel, military.
Yeah, I'm Michael Carter. And I was walking down the street not this last Thursday, but the Thursday before that. I was yelling at some people over there because it looked like the police were hassling somebody, and all I was doing was reminiscing out loud. I was just saying, I remember pretty clearly a time when the park was open 24 hours a day, and the police didn't like hassle everybody. And then I just continued on walking like nothing. Those are the same guys. Let's walk this way. Anyway,
Those goons are coming after.
Those are the same cops?
Very changed today, guys.
No.
Cops really suck my ass.
Nah.
do it all over again.
Yeah. Okay, take two. I can't see it.
Yeah, I'm Michael Carter. I'm the guy that got beat up by the cops like 9 days ago.
They come, we can always run. Okay. We can run.
I think it was those two guys over there in the cop car, Van Aker and Calabro. I was just yelling at some, they were hassling at some people up by the park, and I was yelling at the people around them and saying, I remember a time when this park was open 24 hours a day and the fucking cops didn't hassle you, and you know, I probably said some other stuff about Giuliani and yuppies because I was like on a rhetorical roll. I don't remember exactly what I said but I didn't think anything of it. I crossed over to 10th Street over by the Boys Club, and those two guys I think that are over there in that cop car right now came out with 2 nightsticks and bashed the fuck out of me. Just going home, you know, leave me alone. And so then they started beating me on the arms with the nightsticks.
Let's see. This is like 9 days ago?
Yeah, this is 9 days ago. Fortunately, they didn't break any bones. I went to the hospital because they hit me in the ribs here, and at first they were worried that they might have punctured a rib, but there was no broken ribs.
So they start hitting you,
and then they put me back against the wall, and they hit me like right in the base of the head with like a blackjack type thing.
And what did they charge you with?
They charged me with resisting arrest.
I wouldn't speak anymore. I mean, I'd just be quiet and not say anything.
Yeah, well, if you do that, they're just going to do that to everybody. You know, if nobody knows about what's going on, and what, you know, if you can't just, you know, I was just having like a Proustian reminiscence, only I was doing it very out loud, you know, and these police just, they were not amused at all.
This is Red Tape, edited by Michael Carter. It's a collection of works by all kinds of artists from all over the Lower East Side. Powers to be are going after artists now. This straight. You said something way down there, and you walked all the way down there to the boys club, and that's when they got you?
Yeah, I was just walking home. I had, you know, I'd been partying a little bit, and I was tired, and I just wanted to go home and go to sleep. I had to get up and work the next day, you know, at 9 in the evening. And there's some more. And
let's go down there.
Okay. They started like hitting me with the sticks.
And
they grabbed me, they like tackled me. And then it's like one of them had me. The other one was like hitting me in the arms. And meanwhile, somewhere in there they said I was under arrest. They didn't read me my rights or anything. And then they put the cuffs on me. And it's, you know, like, you know, gangland style. They threw me up against the wall here, like this, you know, and or this way, and put the cuffs on me. Yeah, I'm really great. They put the cuffs on me. And then I felt something like hit me kind of in the back of the head. And it didn't hit a real. Well, you have to understand it was this. All this stuff was happening so fast. I mean, I'm not a violent person by any measure. These people were just like, you know, I was just like, you know, getting hit, and you know, I was yelling about like my rights because there was a few people walking by, and I was trying to get their attention, and I was saying like, well, you know, that I had my rights and that this was police brutality. I mean, while it was going on, and you know, I yelled out the name of Stanley Cohen because he was involved with the Tompkins Square Park incidents as a lawyer and advocate and stuff. And
well, there certainly has been a lot more police.
Then when they kicked me into the car was sitting right there, and then when they kicked me into the car, I said, you know, what about my rights? I said, you don't have any rights, asshole. They said, if you talk like that about cops, you don't have any fucking rights at all. And then they hauled me down to the precinct where I was for about.
But weren't you talking about the park? I mean,
I was mentioning, you know, how it used to be in the park, that
how the park was open.
Yeah, just how the park was open all the time, and you know, we had a lot of good times there, and you know, but I was doing it out loud, and it was kind of for the benefit of the people that were milling about, you know,
that have since come to the neighborhood as.
Yeah, well, I'm just, you know, there's a lot of stuff brewing up in me. I'm just like kind of sick of all this. People walk around and they take for granted that, you know, this is some kind of like Disneyland. As long as you have money, you can hang out in all these fancy cafes and bars, but they don't really understand like how this neighborhood used to be about a certain kind of cultural autonomy, and it's very, I don't know, I was just being nostalgic about that, you know. And so what happens? I get to go to jail for 2 days.
It can't happen here. It can't happen here.
It could happen again tonight if you're not careful.
Yeah, I better put this camera away.
It was Thursday a week ago. I was standing at the entrance to Avenue A on the west side of the park, and there was 2 cops parked there on scooters, and then I noticed Michael Carter walking across the street, and for some reason he decided to yell, I remember when Tompkins Square was open 24 fucking hours a day. And the next thing I know, I look over at the cops, and one of them says to the other one, let's get this motherfucker. So from that point, I knew he was going to get it. So they got on their scooters and they followed him slowly to wait till he got to a 10th and A, which is a dead corner. There's nothing going on there. It's no stores, you know, it's kind of not a lot of people. And then they jumped him there. And they hit him with the nightstick, and at one point they had him up against the wall, and he turned around to say something, and the cop, Calabo, pulled a sap or a black jacket out of his back pocket and hit him, and it bounced off the back of his head and hit him really hard right the top of his shoulder. And then he called what's called an 85, which is officer needs assistance, and like about 20 other cops showed up, and they arrested him and took him to jail. And I filed a CCRB complaint and met with the CCRB investigator on Thursday.
CCRB being?
Civilian Complaint Review Board. And to make the story even more stranger, the same night I met Stanley Cohen, my attorney, for supper over at the sidewalk, and then after we ate, we walked down by the entrance to Tompkins Square Park, and I go, Stanley, watch what happens now. And I yelled out, I remember when Tompkins Square Park used to be open 24 fucking hours a day, and within minutes we were surrounded by an army of cops who blamed it on Stanley and threatened to arrest Stanley Cohen. They go, well, you yelled it, you yelled it. Why can't you say
something? Was the word fucking, or what is?
Well, the legality of it is, and after you know, they threatened to arrest me and Stanley for my comment. I told them I'm the one that yelled it eventually, but Stanley starts citing all these Supreme Court cases about profanity and free speech and political speech and so on and so forth. It's legal, but basically the cops at this point feel that you can't even make a comment about Tompkins Square Park without going to jail, much less do a protest or anything else like that. All it takes now is just making a comment about the park, and the cops are going to beat you up and arrest you and throw you in jail. And they don't really care if the charge stands up or not, because now when you get arrested, you go through the system. So you do 2 days in jail just for using your so-called rights to freedom of speech to make a political comment about the park. So that's where the state of the neighborhood is right now.
Well, who's paying for all these police and judges and lawyers? I mean,
we are, actually, with all the tax money that we spend, you know. I mean, we're the ones paying for this shit.
So we're really stupid, aren't we?
Well, some of us are stupid. Some of us try and do something about it, you know. I mean, some of us try and, like, fight it. But I'd say the majority of the citizenry is stupid, and it's also kind of dangerous, because when the cop came over to me and Stanley, he said, people in the park said, "Are you going to let them get away with that?" And I'm going, like
what kind of people? Right?
I didn't even know. I didn't ask him this. He just said that, you know. And I'm like thinking, you know, how easily people forget that you have a constitutional right to freedom of speech, and maybe they don't like to hear what you're saying, but you got a right to say it without getting arrested for it. And the fact that just because you make a comment about the park, then citizenry is going to, like, egg on the police to arrest you for it is pretty dangerous, I think. I mean, that's how the Nazis came to power in Germany, and that's what started things going there, like that the citizenry would tolerate abuses or even ask the police to arrest people for exercising their constitutional or civil rights.
Yeah, it's like Michael didn't think it was like Nazi Germany. He thought it was more like Mussolini, like so.
Either way, it's Giuliani.
So wow.
Giuliani.
So you think the neighborhood is like going through a change? I mean,
I think the neighborhood has definitely gone through the change. I think that.
What would you attribute is the force behind it? Just like rogue cops, or is there a policy?
Real estate. That's the force behind it. Real estate, power, property, ownership of property, development.
Do you think any of these cops live in this neighborhood?
I don't think they live here, but they're not here to protect us. They're here to protect property owners and people that want to develop yuppie condos that are going up on Avenue A and new restaurants, and that's what they're here for, to enforce the quality of life, as they call it, their version of what their quality of life, so that Avenue A is safe to continue the march toward gentrification and changing the neighborhood from what it has been into something like the Upper West Side.
Who are you guys?
What?
Oh, you guys are from around here?
Yeah, I've lived here for years.
Okay, anything going on tonight special? Parties?
Nice day.
Yeah, the rain stopped. It's a real nice day.
Why? What do you mean?
Well, I just, you know, I want to put my finger on the pulse of the community. You know, I work in the night precinct, and I want to, you know, see what's going on. You know, see if you guys need help or.
I don't know.
Police presence.
Well,
or,
explain to me something. How could a major heroin operation run on 7th Street between Avenue B and C for 15 years and nothing ever was done about it by the 9th Precinct?
I'm here 2 months.
Since you're here to explain me something, explain me that.
I would have to look into that.
From what I understand.
Well, even that way on 10th Street, they're selling like on 1st Avenue and 10th Street.
Okay.
It's all over the place.
From Well, I understand the DEA was able to bust that operation in 7 months. The 9th Precinct let it go for 15 years.
Yeah, but
that's all I'd like to know.
They did it with our help, though.
Well, I think that they didn't tell the 9th Precinct about it because they were scared that it's going to leak back to the drug dealers. That's the information that I got.
No, I can't verify that information.
That's what I heard.
Something's going on today.
Not that I know.
There's always something going on. It's the Lower East Side.
Yeah, I know, but out of the ordinary, you know?
Well, you know, it's hot summer nights, people just hang out.
There's always things going on out of the ordinary in this neighborhood.
All right, fellas. It's nice chatting with you.
But you could also explain to me something.
Sure, gladly.
What is the law on freedom of speech? I mean, can you be arrested for making a comment that the police don't like? Is that against the law?
No.
It's not against the law.
In that text, the way you presented it, the way you packaged it and presented it to me?
Yes.
No.
All right, hypothetically now.
Hypothetically.
All right, now I'm going to say something not directed at you, but
I
just...
really like to answer hypothetical questions, but...
All right, I'll repeat a quote that I heard someone say. He said, I remember when Tompkins Square Park used to be open 24 fucking hours a day. And for that, he was arrested. Now, is what he did against the law? Does that violate the
package?
Law? Statement. Is that against the law?
In alone of itself?
In alone of itself.
To my knowledge, no.
That's what I thought. But he was arrested for that.
I don't know the entire circumstances.
Yeah, well...
I don't know where he said it, what was involved.
Oh, I can tell you where he said it. He said it right over here.
What physical surroundings?
Well, he was just walking down Avenue A and he made that comment. But at this point, the CCRB is investigating it, and the fact that he was had to go to the hospital after he was released from jail. And
every CCRB complaint, as you know, is thoroughly and fully investigated, and they're not a part of our police department.
Yeah, I know. But you know what my feelings are is that, like, someone in your position of authority would prefer that, like, the B cop don't instigate a thing like that, because that can cause people to come out and do protests over it.
I want a peaceful coexistence between everybody, between the residents themselves, between the police and the residents.
You know what would really help? If you would inform the beat cops around Tompkins Square Park about the freedom of speech laws, that you shouldn't arrest somebody if they want to make...
You shouldn't hit them, at least.
I'm sure they know it, but I'll
give you another example.
Review it.
I myself personally was walking down Avenue A the other night with my attorney, Stanley Cohen, right?
Stanley Cohen.
And I go, Stanley, let me show you something. So I said exactly the same thing that this other guy said. Within minutes, I was stopped by a police officer who called for backup. We were surrounded by 10 police officers from the park. First of all, they threatened to arrest Stanley Cohen for saying it, and he didn't even say it. I owned up to making the comment.
Okay.
So that's 2 incidents within like 1 week.
I'm gonna have to look into this.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear.
Once they found out he was a lawyer, he started citing Supreme Court cases to him.
What was the statement?
I remember when Tompkins Square Park used to be open 24 fucking hours a day. That was the gist of the statement.
It's like Niagara Falls, slowly I turn, right?
But once Stanley started citing Supreme Court cases and the sergeant showed up, he showed some good judgment and decided to, just say, let's call it a night.
I'll tell
People shouldn't be scared of the police. That's what I think.
They shouldn't be. I agree with that.
You should feel free in America to, if you want to make a political statement, you shouldn't be arrested or beaten up for doing that. I'm a Vietnam vet, right?
I agree.
I feel I did my part for America, so I got my rights.
Case law.
It is case law.
You're absolutely right.
It's already been tested and tried, but these guys don't know it. These rookies you got out here at the park, they ought to know it.
Okay, well, I'm sure they, in my opinion, I'm sure they do know it, but we'll gladly go over it with them.
Yeah, well, they're probably going to get a little lesson